Okay, so I'm going to be talking about The Sea Change by Ernest Hemingway. Okay, so I think the themes of the story is pride, identity, acceptance, independence, sexuality, and conflict. Um, in this story, Hemingway discusses bisexuality, which was, of course, taboo back in 1931. So it's because the story is about a man, like a couple, where the woman has been cheating on the man with another woman, and now they are confronting each other about it. Okay, so I think the fact that the woman has cheated is of course bad and it's hard for the man to accept. But what makes it even harder to accept was that it was with a woman, especially because at the time, you know, the 1900s or the 1930s. Um, and I think that the reason why this is about bisexuality, or why Hemingway is discussing bisexuality, is because the woman, like, even though she is caught and confronted about it, she seems to like still be committed to both the man and her, you know, lover, like her side piece. Um, and I think this is also about power and this the role or the roles of the genders, because the woman is not ashamed of her relationship with the other woman, because she lives her way, the way she wants to, which is why she's an non-developing character, because she has already found her way. She is who she is, and she doesn't really need any further development. Um, and and it's a problem to the man because he cannot control her. Like he doesn't really have power over her anymore because she does what she wants to. And I think he doesn't like the fact that he doesn't have a say in any of this. So I think that he feels that he isn't important in the relationship anymore, that he could leave and she would still be happy. um, which I think is why there's a conflict between the man and the woman. Well, of course, also because she cheated, of course. And it also went against the norms and the ideas of the society. Yeah. So the physical setting. So the whole event or the whole conversation takes place in a cafe, which you can see on line 10. And that is, as I was saying, it was early and there was no one in the cafe except the barman. So that's how we know it's in a cafe, and we know it's in Paris, as you can see on line 12 to 13. That it says so that they looked out of place in Paris, which I don't know if it's just an metaphor, or if it's actually if they're actually describing that, if they're actually saying that they are in Paris. But I'm just gonna say that they are in Paris because yeah. So this entire event takes place in a cafe in Paris, where the two main characters, Phil and the girl, which remains unnamed throughout the entire story, have a tense discussion. So the main physical setting is the table where the couple are sitting and having the conversation. And it says on line 11 or oh, line 10 to 11 that these two sat together at a table in the corner. So yeah, that is the physical setting. So the structure of the story. The story begins with it begins in medias res, and which we can see on the very beginning of the story, of course, because it starts with a dialogue or a conversation. So we don't really have any backstory. We're not introduced. We just start immediately in the story. Yeah, it starts with a dialogue between the two main characters, and it follows a linear plot, which means that the story is concentrated on the main characters and their dialogue. There's an omniscient narrator that describes the setting. This describes the setting, the looks, or the appearance of the characters and their interactions with each other. And actually, I think there are three main characters. There's also Jake. There's of course Phil and the girl, and then I think there's also the barman James. And I think that could be the narrator because if you just take a quick um, characterization of him, he is the barman in the cafe, and I think he's an outside observer of the couple. And towards the end, he doesn't really realize that they have actually been arguing and that they have been broken up. So it's like he could be the narrator because he's not really in this situation. He's just listening from the outside and he doesn't know exactly what is going on. So, yeah, so that's why it could be told by through James' eyes, maybe. And if you just characterize the girl, and she doesn't really develop throughout the story. And we have a short outer characterization of her that we have on line 12. Where it says the girl wore a tweed suit, her skin was smooth, golden brown, her blonde hair was cut short and grew beautifully away from her forehead. So she seems like a very put together young woman, but still hardworking or still that dress like respectably because of her tweed suit. So yeah, she sounds very put together. Then there's Phil, which is a developing character because towards the end of the story, his attitude changes, and I think that is what Hemingway refers to with the title when he calls it the sea change, that it is the transformation of Phil's character. Because the sea is water and water symbolizes change. So yeah, okay. Yeah. So we can also hear it in the dialogue or in the story where it says that toward on line 122 to 123, it says that his voice sounded very strange, which I think is maybe it was like an eye opener for him. Like, wow, okay, this is what's really going on, So that way, his attitude was changed. Maybe I don't know. I think I hope. Okay, so there are a few metaphors in this story, but there are very, very few because this is a Hemingway story, so it is, of course, very straightforward and minimalistic in the style of writing and narration, which it gives us as the readers some details, but doesn't really, but we don't really get into the emotional significance of the events. We don't really get in depth with what's happening. There's repetition that is used frequently, but yeah, not that much. We have an example here on line 18 where it says, I will, I swear to God, I will, which, yes, is the repetition. And we're not really sure about what's happening or what he's so sure about, but I could imagine that it's like about killing someone, maybe. Yeah, and it indicates that he's being very serious and that he's making this statement to really express his anger and frustration towards this situation. So yeah, I think it's a very tense. I think the atmosphere is very tense between the two. So there are a few symbols in the story, which there's, for example, the one with the sea change that I just said, and then there are the girl's hands, which we see on line 16, where it says, please don't, the girl said. She had very fine hands, and the man looked at them. They were slim and brown and very beautiful. So I think the hand symbolizes the girl's femininity, her beauty, and her youth, and which I think is why um, the man is looking at them like he's looking at him. He's admiring her femininity and her beauty and her youth. Um, so yes, okay. So in the start, it is, if you take the very first dialogue, it is very it seems very chill, like calm. It seems that is very serious yet, but it really does develop really really fast. And because like already at line 15, he says, "I'll kill her," and she's like, "Please don't!" Like she's begging him, and so it develops really fast, and um, it this actually indicates that the situation evolves around a woman, which is a threat to their relationship, of course. So towards the end of the story, Phil says that he's a different man. He says that to James, the barman, and I think it's very important to include because it's like it's the first time in the story that he seems to accept his girlfriend. Because like okay, he's changed and that he sees that his girlfriend's actions like they're going against the society, but she still seems okay. Like she still seems normal. That just because she's gay or bisexual, it doesn't make her different. So it has really opened his eyes, and I think it was very difficult for the main, because I think it was going against his beliefs, especially because he was probably affected by what the society said about sexuality and stuff. Um, and I think that he's been really shaken. And I think that the point that Hemingway is trying to make with this is that throughout his own like ability to handle the situation of his girlfriend's like, bisexuality, he realizes that like if he could, he would stay with her. Like he still wishes to stay with her, and it also shows that throughout the story. But he has to accept her for who she is, like even if that leads to like and change within the man or a change like for his life and for her life, but he has to accept that this is what she wants to do and this is how she is happy. Um, so yeah, he's of course not okay with his girlfriend being with another girl, but it's I think why did they break up? Of course, I think because okay, if he can't have her, at least someone should, and this someone is actually making her happy. So this is what is going to happen. So I think he swallowed his pride like really, and I think it's a very beautiful message, and I think it's great to see that the main he changed like this throughout the story. I think it's very refreshing, um, especially because of the other stories you have read and the way they think about the girls. Um, and I think that the man has also forgiven her girlfriend for the cheating that she has done. Like he's still unhappy about her actions, but he is realizing that there's nothing he can do about it anymore. So he just has to accept it and move on. So I think the final line, "You look very well, sir," James said. "You must have a very good summer." It really adds this like normality to the story. It's really like because it's such a normal sentence. It's something that you could hear from everyone. And this indicates that James is unaware of the situation between Phil and the girl. That because if he knew about the situation about Phil and the girl, he probably wouldn't say that. He probably would have said something like "I'm sorry" or just something that shows that he cares, but he clearly doesn't know. Um, but James is carrying on as normal. And that is expected because he is the boring man. It's not like he's been looking at them the